Welcome to the Find My New Life podcast. I'm Christopher Lapine, spiritual liberation author and speaker. This podcast brings you inspiration, hope, and answers for how to live a modern, God-centered spiritual life. It will help you have a more direct, deeper experience of God, find more happiness, and live your incredible God-given destiny. You can find all my podcasts, as well as videos, books, and more at findmynewlife.com. So, let's get started with today's show. Hello, welcome. I'm Christopher Lapine. Today, I'm going to help you remove some spiritual roadblocks that might be limiting your understanding, joy, and liberation. Just like our last episode, I'll be sharing quotations from the Urantia Book from the angels. Of course, you can also access or buy the Urantia Book online and enjoy the 777-page biography about Jesus, part 4 of that book. Today's episode is The Limitations of Christianity, the Errors and Middlemen. We're going to delve in and look at what happened after Jesus gave his teachings and moved on. Most of it was sincere, unintentional, but it got pretty complicated pretty quickly. This will be especially valuable if you are a Christian looking for better experience of Christ, or if you want to help your community, your church, your Christian community. It's at a crisis right now, like many. Christianity really is in the greatest crisis of its entire existence because it has departed in large part from what Jesus originally taught. So if your desire for truth is strong, if you're open-minded, if you're brave, and if you're willing to discover what God's going to present to you, then come with me today. Again, that's my challenge to you. And I've said this in the last podcast, but I'm not some kind of guru and I don't want to interpret things for you. I'll have a few comments on some of the quotes I read. But generally, it's between you and God, and I have no right to try to judge you or do anything, honestly. This is your life. And, so many of the negative things we've experienced, people have tried to judge us, tell us what to do, tell us what to think, try to be intermediaries with God. We're not doing that today. So, and I also want to emphasize to Christians, again, I come from a Christian background. I actually attend a progressive Christian church. So I'm not trying to tear anybody down. But what this is about is getting direct to the Master and making the Master our full and top priority, honestly, and trusting the Spirit of truth that he gives us and going forward with that. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So essentially, much of this is based on, what's your assumption about God? How do you envision God? And I think you'd agree that God is perfect and loving and ideal behind anything we can imagine. That's really the ideal, the best type of God we can have. We all agree the world is messed up. There are problems. A lot of people who suffer shouldn't be suffering. It's a mess. Free will is involved, so it makes it complicated. But in the end, if we start with the assumption that God is a perfect, loving divine parent, a perfect loving father, then we can accept that kind love we're feeling within. We can trust that Spirit of truth and trust him as a little child, and then let him lead us to all truth. And that's really what it's about today. So go with that spirit today and listen. We're in a modern spiritual crisis. There's no doubt about it. I alluded to it before. Christianity is going through its greatest crisis right now. There is so much going on. Christianity, the spirituality of Christianity, the experience that it's trying to enable cannot keep pace, does not allow a person to keep pace and cope with the challenges of modern life. It's not only the complexity and the speed of the change, but it's also the way our senses are inundated with information. Amazing amounts of information. Our senses are becoming completely saturated with information. And the main culprit right now, of course, is a smartphone, the screen. Mine's laying on the table over here, lying on the table. There it is. I'm putting it down. It's astounding. So we've got tremendous challenges. Everything, almost everything is working against us trying to experience God. So the only thing that's going to work is to follow what Jesus originally gave us, and he knew this time was coming. So where did Christianity go wrong? What are the problems? Again, Christianity has made astounding contributions to this world. It gave us the story of Jesus. It gave us some of the essential teachings and inspired countless hundreds and hundreds of millions of people over the centuries, billions. There's over 2 billion people who are Christians today. But there's been a tremendous amount of problem with that. So let's get back to where it went wrong. Well, the first area, number one, is Christianity made the focus Jesus, completely Jesus. When we compare what he taught to what Christianity teaches, one of the main differences coming out of Peter's initial preaching was the absolute and total focus on Jesus, almost forgetting the Father, forgetting God. It was Jesus. It was all about Jesus. The amazing fact of the resurrection, how he lived his life. It was mostly centered around that. So it wasn't the religion of Jesus, was it? No. It was the religion about Jesus. So that was the first big shift. They lost that very, very quickly and kept on it. And the next was the whole salvation model. How are you saved? Let's see. What did Jesus teach? Jesus taught that you accept that you are a child of God. You accept that by faith. You experience God within. You accept that by faith. You know that we're all sisters and brothers. And you also accept that God is going to give you what you need through this faith, and that the path for eternal salvation is serving others, giving, loving as God loves us. The great commandment. In essence, that's it. That's all there is to it. It transcends everything. Jesus said, all the law and the prophets are transcended or extended by that one commandment. And when we look at the salvation model that Christianity has taught, has evolved to. And remember, the salvation model, the thing that Christianity said you needed to do, changed over the centuries. It changed. So what do we have? Now we are told, essentially, that you were born with sin on your soul. As a baby, sin, like this kind of karmic goo or ooze, it lives on your soul. Even as a baby, you already have sin. And that if this is not removed, you're going to hell. That's insane. That has no relationship to a loving God. Zero. So that's a major issue right there. It got off track. But it gets worse. So then, how is the sin removed? Well, the only way we could do this is to take a divine Son of God and put him on earth and kill him. A blood sacrifice. That is absolutely barbaric. It has nothing to do with the loving nature of God. And none of us would do this to our children. So God is so much more than we are. So, and many, many progressive Christians have come to these conclusions already. Many. I'm restating a lot of what's been said. But let's take that one away. The other one that came in was secondhand religion. So as church institutions grew, organizations with saints that were identified, cardinals, popes, bishops, priests, the entire constellation and hierarchy completely constricted the person's experience to God. With number one, the intermediaries that you had to go through, they're going to interpret God for you. They're going to help you get to God. And they're going to give you a whole slew of new rules to complicate things. Right? So now you've got the intermediaries, you've got the complicated rules, when the focus totally on Jesus, and unless you accept Jesus right through this blood sacrifice, you're going to hell. What did Jesus teach? Super simple. Accept the experience of God within, the loving Father within. Spend time with God, follow that, trust that Spirit, serve others. Believe you're a child of God, and that's your eternal salvation. all things needful will be provided. Extremely simple. But we complicated it. And then again, it got worse because then because of the result of this emphasis on secondhand religion and the hierarchies, Christianity became very warped very fast. It became almost completely secularized. It became like the society around it. It was co-opted many, many times. And as you know, that royalty in Europe was oftentimes sanctioned and confirmed by popes. And so, again, extremely different, nothing of what Jesus wanted. And today, Christianity has been almost completely politicized in some areas. And in the United States, there are almost sects of Christianity that are politically identified. And they're very divided. And that's a great, great crisis. So, again, I want to encourage you, if you are a Christian, especially if you're a Christian, to trust the Spirit within and think about a perfect God and what that perfect God would teach through Jesus. Look at the Gospels, look back, and really honestly assess. There were problems in the way the humans reacted to this incredible divine life. When you take that away, if you're not a Christian, I'm sure you have no problem accepting what I'm saying, but you might say, then I don't want Jesus. Either way, don't let negative experiences, don't let these things rob you of an incredible gift of truth and love through your Father, brother, Jesus. That's going to take you direct to God. So let's go forward. I'm going to read some quotations from the Urantia Book, this pre-Christian angelic revelation of truth. That's what's being revealed. This book was written in the 1930s, but it's revealing the original pre-Christian teachings of Jesus as recorded by the angels. So here's what they're saying. It's going to be interesting. Let's go through and see what they have to say about this whole evolution over 2,000 years. The results of Peter's preaching on the day of Pentecost were such as to decide the future policies and to determine the plans of the majority of the apostles in their efforts to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom. Peter was the real founder of the Christian church. Paul carried the Christian message to the Gentiles, and the Greek believers carried it to the whole Roman Empire. So it's those seeds of mistakes that started with Peter's preaching, the emphasis on the resurrection and the person of Jesus as the ultimate triumph and the focus of the religion, that got things off track pretty quickly. Here's another one which talks about Christianity in the 20th century. The 20th century has brought new problems for Christianity and all other religions to solve. The higher a civilization climbs, the more necessitous becomes the duty to, quote, seek first the realities of heaven, unquote, in all of man's efforts to stabilize society and facilitate the solution of its material problems. The emphasis, again, is on first-hand experience of God. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. Let's learn a little bit more about what Christianity gave us, but also the challenges of how it grew and the compromises it made. Do not overlook the value of your spiritual heritage, the river of truth running down through the centuries, even to the barren times of a materialistic and secular age. In all your worthy efforts to rid yourselves of the superstitious creeds of past ages, make sure that you hold fast the eternal truth. But be patient. When the present superstition revolt is over, the truths of Jesus' gospel will persist gloriously to illuminate a new and better way. But paganized and socialized Christianity stands in need of new contact with the uncompromised teachings of Jesus. It languishes for lack of a new vision of the Master's life on earth. A new and fuller revelation of the religion of Jesus is destined to conquer an empire of materialistic secularism and to overthrow a world sway of mechanistic naturalism. Urantia is now quivering on the very brink of one of its most amazing and enthralling epochs of social readjustment, moral quickening, and spiritual enlightenment. There is so much promise. We're on the very brink of an incredible new spiritual era. Here's another quote about challenges to Christianity. Christianity has dared to lower its ideals before the challenge of human greed, war madness, and the lust for power. But the religion of Jesus stands as the unsullied and transcendent spiritual summons, calling to the best there is in man to rise above all these legacies of animal evolution and, by grace, attain the moral heights of true human destiny. Christianity is threatened by slow death from formalism, over-organization, intellectualism, and other non-spiritual trends. The modern Christian church is not such a brotherhood of dynamic believers as Jesus commissioned continuously to effect the spiritual transformation of successive generations of mankind. So-called Christianity has become a social and cultural movement as well as a religious belief and practice. The stream of modern Christianity drains many an ancient pagan swamp and many a barbarian morass. Many olden cultural watersheds drain into this present-day cultural stream, as well as the high Galilean tablelands, which are supposed to be its exclusive source. Again, as Christianity went along, gained new followers, absorbed peoples and belief systems, it compromised and it was tainted. And it only got worse as time went on. Here's another one. Final commentary on Christianity. Christianity has indeed done a great service for this world, but what is now most needed is Jesus. The world needs to see Jesus living again on earth in the experience of spirit-born mortals who effectively reveal the Master to all men. It is futile to talk about a revival of primitive Christianity. You must go forward from where you find yourselves. Modern culture must become spiritually baptized with a new revelation of Jesus' life and illuminated with a new understanding of his gospel of eternal salvation. And when Jesus becomes thus lifted up, he will draw all men to himself. Jesus' disciples should be more than conquerors, even overflowing sources of inspiration and enhanced living to all men. Religion is only an exalted humanism until it is made divine by the discovery of the reality of the presence of God in personal experience. There are very profound implications of moving forward with the original teachings of Jesus, the understanding of his life, the inspiration. And that's what you're going to get in the next part of this podcast series. And we'll continue on through who he was, what he taught, all the major events in his life. So remember, Jesus is our divine Son of God. He lived as God and man and lived a perfect life and gave his perfect teachings. The very teachings he learned directly from God, from the Father. The only way to fully comprehend and benefit from them is if you are willing to honestly accept the errors of Christianity and accept the original teachings of Jesus. If you're willing to put aside the errors and open your mind, and if you're willing to put aside any bad experiences or negative feelings you have about Jesus, because those might be associated with a bad church experience. Put it aside, open your mind. Remember, you are a child of God, and he is going to provide everything you need to grow and fulfill that incredible desire for truth that he put in you. You're going to get everything you need to grow, when you need it, in the way you need it, for as long as you need it. And when you do that, when you embrace that, you're going to discover the incredible original teachings of Jesus. Period. Strength, joy, and true spiritual liberation. All you need to do to accept God, again, is use your faith, follow that leading, realizing that we're all sisters and brothers, and seek the joy of self-forgetful service and spirituality. So join me in the series as we continue. It's been great having you today. You're going to discover the answers to your questions about Jesus and find a new life, the one you're meant to live. I'm going to peel back the layers of confusion gradually. So join me in the next episode, which is The Direct Steps to Jesus, Escaping the Monopoly. As always, please subscribe. And if you believe in what I'm doing, invite others to see this podcast, please. I really want to give you as much value as I can here. Again, I said it's a privilege of my life. So please, if you know anyone who has an interest, please have them see the podcast. And also remember, you are a child of God and we are family.
Thanks for listening today. I hope it helped you on your journey. Go to findmynewlife.com for all my podcasts and much more. If you'd like to contact me with ideas or requests, use the Contact Me link on that website. I wish you the best on your spiritual journey. Remember, you are a child of God and we are family. You could claim an amazing destiny. See you next time.